The day my grandfather's final letter was read, my mother stopped crying halfway through the first paragraph. Not because she was comforted, because she realized what he had done. We were sitting in Mr. Callahan's law office, the same office my family had used for years whenever there were deeds, tax papers, or disputes no one wanted to discuss at the dinner table. Outside the window, rain streaked down the glass in thin silver lines. Inside, the air felt heavy enough to choke on. My father sat with his arms crossed, jaw tight, refusing to look at me. My mother sat beside him, dabbing her eyes with a tissue she had barely used. My older brother, Ryan, leaned back in his chair with that smug little smile he always wore when he believed the world had already chosen him. And me? I sat at the far end of the table, holding my hands together so no one would see them shake. For 3 months, my parents had called me selfish, greedy, manipulative. They told relatives I was trying to steal the ancestral home after Grandpa died. They said I cared more about property than family. All because I refused to sign papers selling the old house, the house Grandpa built with his own hands, the house where I learned to bake biscuits, plant tomatoes, and listen when old people told stories slowly, because every word mattered. My mother had said, "You're tearing this family apart." My father had said, "Your grandfather would be ashamed of you." But when Mr. Callahan unfolded that letter and began reading Grandpa's words out loud, the room changed. Ryan's smile disappeared first. Then my father's face turned pale. Then my mother whispered, "No." He wouldn't, but he had. And by the time the lawyer finished reading, everyone finally understood why Grandpa had trusted me with the truth. But to understand why that letter destroyed every lie my family had told about me, you need to know what that old house really meant, and why they were so desperate to sell it before anyone asked questions. My grandfather's house sat at the end of a gravel road outside a small Kentucky town where everyone knew your truck before they knew your name. It wasn't fancy. The paint peeled in places, the porch boards groaned when the weather changed. The kitchen cabinets never fully closed unless you lifted them just right. But to me, that house was the closest thing to magic I ever knew. Grandpa built it when he was 27. He used to tell me he had more courage than money back then. He cut wood, borrowed tools, traded labor with neighbors, and slept in the unfinished living room during the first winter because he couldn't afford both insulation and a rented room. "Every nail in this house knows my name," he told me once. I believed him. My parents had never loved the place the way I did. To them, it was old, inconvenient, too far from town, too full of repairs and memories they didn't want to carry. My brother Ryan hated it most of all. He called it Grandpa's Museum and complained about the smell of wood smoke and old books. But I loved everything about it. I loved the garden behind the shed, where Grandpa grew tomatoes bigger than my fist. I loved the pantry where Grandma's handwritten labels still sat on jars long after she passed. I loved the upstairs bedroom with the slanted ceiling where I slept during summers, listening to cicadas outside the window. Grandpa raised me as much as my parents did, maybe more. My mother worked long shifts as a nurse. My father managed a car dealership and came home tired, irritated, and allergic to conversation. Ryan was 5 years older than me and treated family like a stage where he was always the lead character. So when school let out, I went to Grandpa's. He taught me how to change a tire, how to balance a checkbook, how to sharpen kitchen knives, how to tell when someone was lying by listening to what they avoided saying. "People tell the truth around the edges," he said. At 12, I didn't understand. At 28, I would. I wasn't the perfect granddaughter. I was stubborn, sensitive, sometimes too quiet. But I showed up. When Grandpa's knees got bad, I mowed the yard. When his hands shook, I helped him write checks. When he forgot appointments, I made a calendar and taped it beside the phone. In college, I drove home every other weekend, even when gas money was tight. I studied accounting because numbers made sense to me, and because Grandpa always said every family needed one person who could read the fine print. Ryan came around on holidays, usually late, usually empty-handed. always with a story about how busy he was. My parents made excuses for him. Your brother has pressure, Mom would say. He's building something, Dad would add. Ryan was always building something, a business, a partnership, a plan, a future. Somehow none of it ever lasted, but everyone kept clapping as if failure became ambition when a son did it loudly enough. When I graduated, Grandpa gave me a small silver key on a faded blue ribbon. "What's this?" I asked. He smiled. "Backdoor key. You've earned it." I laughed. "I already have one." "No," he said softly. "This one means something different." I didn't know what he meant then. Looking back, I wish I had asked more questions, because the people who smiled at Grandpa's birthday dinners were already waiting for the day the house would become money. And I had no idea I was about to become the only person standing in their way. Grandpa died on a Sunday morning in early October. The call came before sunrise. My mother's voice was flat in that strange way grief sometimes sounds before it has language. "Ellie," she said. "Grandpa's gone." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I drove to his house while the sky was still gray. The porch light was on. A cup of tea sat cold on the kitchen table. His reading glasses were folded beside the newspaper. I stood in that kitchen, touching the back of his chair, and felt the whole world go quiet. My mother cried into my shoulder. My father stood by the sink, staring out the window. Ryan arrived 2 hours later in a black SUV I had never seen before, wearing sunglasses indoors. "Where's the will?" he asked, before he hugged anyone. My mother looked embarrassed. "Ryan," she whispered. "What?" "We need to know what we're dealing with." That was the first crack. But it wasn't the worst. The funeral was small but full. Neighbors came with casseroles. Old friends told stories. Mr. Alvarez from the hardware store cried harder than some relatives. People kept telling me, "Your grandfather was so proud of you." Each time, my chest ached. After the burial, we gathered at my parents' house. I thought we would share memories. Maybe cry. Maybe sit quietly. Instead, Ryan opened his laptop at the dining table. "I talked to a developer," he said. "That land is worth more than the house itself. If we sell quickly, before repairs become an issue, we could get a serious offer." I stared at him. "Grandpa was buried 3 hours ago." Ryan sighed. "Ellie, don't be dramatic. This is exactly why these things get messy." My father said nothing. My mother folded napkins that didn't need folding. I looked at both of them. "You're considering selling the house?" Dad finally spoke. "It's a lot to maintain. I can help maintain it." Ryan laughed. "With what money?" I felt my face burn. "I have a job. You rent an apartment and drive a 10-year-old car. Because I don't waste money pretending I'm successful." The room went silent. Ryan's eyes hardened. Mom snapped, "Enough." But I wasn't done. "Grandpa loved that house. He built it. He wanted it kept in the family." Dad rubbed his forehead. "You don't know what he wanted." I looked at him, stunned. "I spent every weekend with him. And that doesn't make you owner of his wishes," Ryan said. Then he turned the laptop around. On the screen was a proposal. A clean digital rendering of townhomes where Grandpa's garden used to be. I felt sick. "You already talked to developers?" Ryan shrugged. "Informally," Mom said. "It could help all of us, Ellie." "All of us?" Dad's voice turned hard. "Your brother has debts. Your mother and I have retirement to think about. This is not the time for sentimental decisions." There it was. Sentimental. That word people use when they want to make love sound foolish. I whispered. "Grandpa's house is not a lottery ticket." Ryan leaned back. "No, but it could save this family from years of financial stress if you stop making everything about yourself." "Me?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Ellie, please. Don't turn this into a fight." "I'm not. I'm asking you not to erase him for money." Dad stood up. "You always thought you were closer to him than everyone else." "I was there." "That doesn't give you the right to act superior." I felt the old family pattern closing in around me. Ryan creates a mess. My parents protect him. I question it. Suddenly, I become the problem. Then Ryan said the sentence that changed everything. If Grandpa wanted her to have a say, he would have put it in writing. I didn't know then that he had, but not in the way Ryan expected. The pressure started immediately. At first, it came dressed as concern. My mother called and said, "Honey, no one is trying to hurt you. We just need to be practical." My father texted links to articles about property taxes and maintenance costs. Ryan sent me a spreadsheet showing how much each of us could receive from the sale, as if putting greed into columns made it respectable. I ignored him. Then the tone changed. My aunt called. "Ellie, your mother says you're refusing to let the family move forward." My mother said that? She says you're obsessed with the house. Obsessed. A cousin messaged me. "I know you loved Grandpa, but don't be selfish." Selfish. At church, an older woman touched my arm and said, "Sometimes inheritance brings out the worst in people." She meant me, not Ryan. Not the son who had already promised developers access before the estate was settled. Not my parents, who were ready to sell the place before Grandpa's flowers wilted on his grave. Me. Looking back, I should have recognized the sign. They weren't trying to discuss. They were trying to isolate. 2 weeks later, my parents invited me to dinner. I wanted to believe it was peace, but I was wrong. When I arrived, Ryan was there with a man named Brent Willis, a developer in a shiny gray suit who complimented my mother's curtains before telling us he could honor the land's legacy with luxury rental units. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Brent slid papers across the table. We would need all interested parties to sign acknowledgement of intent. Nothing final yet, of course. I looked at my parents. "You brought me here to pressure me?" Dad said. "We brought you here to be reasonable." "I'm not signing anything." Ryan's smile disappeared. "You haven't even read it." "I don't need to read an agreement to destroy Grandpa's home." Brent cleared his throat. Demolition wouldn't occur immediately. I stood up. My mother started crying. "Why are you doing this to us?" That stopped me. "To you?" "Yes," she said, voice breaking. "Your father is exhausted. Your brother is trying to get back on his feet. And you are holding on to a dead man's house like it matters more than living people." I felt like she slapped me. Dad didn't correct her. Ryan looked down at the table, pretending sadness while satisfaction flickered around his mouth. But that still wasn't the worst part. The worst came 3 days later, when I drove to Grandpa's house and found the back door lock changed. For a full minute, I just stood there, with the silver key in my hand. The key Grandpa gave me. The key, he said, meant something different. It no longer worked. I called my father. He answered on the 4th ring. "Why did you change the locks?" His voice was cold. "Because you've become unpredictable." "What?" "Ryan said you might remove things from the house." I almost couldn't speak. He said I would steal? He said you're emotional. I closed my eyes. "Dad, that is my grandfather's house. It is estate property. Then why does Ryan get access?" Silence. I had my answer. I said, "You're punishing me for not signing." Dad sighed. "We're protecting the family from your behavior." My behavior, not Ryan's greed, not my parents' weakness, mine. A week later, I received a letter from Ryan's attorney accusing me of interfering with estate resolution and causing financial harm. The language was cold, formal, and humiliating. I sat on my apartment floor reading it while my dinner burned on the stove. I lost weight. I stopped sleeping. At work, I made mistakes I had never made before. I snapped at a coworker and cried in the restroom afterward. My manager gently asked if I needed time off. I said no because I needed the paycheck. Every night, I drove past Grandpa's road but couldn't bring myself to turn in. I imagined the house dark and locked, holding all our memories like hostages. Then one evening, I saw Ryan's SUV parked there. I pulled over behind the trees and watched him carry boxes out of the house. Grandpa's fishing rods, Grandma's quilt chest, the old brass lamp from the study. I got out of the car. "What are you doing?" Ryan turned, startled, then annoyed. Inventory. That's not inventory. You're removing things. They're family items. Then why are you taking them alone? He walked toward me. You need to accept reality, Ellie. The house is going. The land is going. Grandpa is gone. My throat tightened. He trusted us. Ryan smiled slightly. No, he trusted you. And that's what you can't stand losing. I didn't understand what he meant then, but I would, because Grandpa had left one final instruction. And Ryan had been terrified I would find it. I stopped answering their calls, not because I stopped caring, but because caring was killing me. For the first time in my life, I chose silence over begging. I called Mr. Callahan, Grandpa's lawyer, and asked if the estate had been settled. He paused. Ellie, he said carefully, I was expecting to hear from you sooner. My heart began to pound. Why? There are matters your family may not have fully explained. I drove to his office the next morning before work. He was in his 70s, with silver hair, tired eyes, and a voice that made every sentence sound like it belonged in a courtroom. He poured me coffee I didn't drink and placed a thick folder on the desk. Your grandfather updated his estate documents 6 months before he passed, he said. I stared at him. My parents didn't tell me. No, I gathered that. He slid a copy of the will toward me. Most of the financial assets were divided between my mother and her siblings. Ryan was left a small sum. My parents were mentioned in relation to personal property. Then I saw the section about the house. The ancestral home and surrounding 5 acres were not to be sold for a minimum of 10 years. My breath caught. And after 10 years? I asked. Right of first refusal goes to you. I looked up slowly. Me? Mr. Callahan nodded. Your grandfather knew you were the only one who wanted to preserve it. I covered my mouth. For weeks, they had called me greedy for defending something Grandpa had legally protected. But Mr. Callahan wasn't finished. There is also a sealed letter, he said, to be read only if the family attempted to sell the property or pressure you into signing related documents. My hands went cold. He knew? The lawyer's eyes softened. He suspected. I wanted to cry, but instead, I felt something steadier rise inside me. Not revenge, resolve. Mr. Callahan advised me not to confront them alone. He sent formal notice to all parties that any sale discussions violated the will's terms. Ryan responded with outrage. My parents responded with denial. They claimed they hadn't understood, but I knew better. For the first time, I had paper stronger than their accusations. Still, rebuilding myself was not instant. The family backlash worsened. My mother left voicemails sobbing that I had lawyered up against my own blood. My father said I had embarrassed him. Ryan accused me of manipulating Grandpa before he died. Those words hurt, but they no longer controlled me. I started visiting the house again after Mr. Callahan restored my access. The first time my key turned in the lock, I stood on the porch and cried. Inside, dust floated in the afternoon light. The house smelled like cedar, old coffee, and silence. I cleaned one room at a time. I returned the items Ryan had not managed to take. I repaired the broken pantry shelf. I hired a local handyman to fix the porch steps. I planted tomatoes in Grandpa's garden even though I had no idea if they would grow. Some died. Some lived. So did I. Every weekend, I worked on that house until my hands blistered. Not because I owned it outright, not because it made financial sense, but because every nail still knew his name. And slowly, I stopped feeling like the girl they called greedy. I became the woman Grandpa had trusted. Then Mr. Callahan called. Ellie, he said, your family has requested a formal reading of the sealed letter. I closed my eyes, because I knew then the truth was finally coming. The letter was read on a rainy Thursday. My parents arrived first. My mother looked wounded, as if she were the victim of a war she had started. My father avoided my eyes. Ryan came last, carrying confidence like armor. This is ridiculous, he muttered. A dead man's emotional letter doesn't override market reality. Mr. Callahan looked at him calmly. No, but his will does. Ryan went quiet. The lawyer opened the sealed envelope with a silver letter opener. The room seemed to hold its breath. He began reading. My dear family, if this letter is being read, it means the house has become a source of conflict. That breaks my heart, though it does not surprise me. My mother stiffened. Mr. Callahan continued. I know some of you see the house as an asset. I do not blame you for needing money. Life is hard, and I have known hard years myself. But I built that house so our family would always have a place that could not be taken by impatience, pride, or debt. Ryan shifted in his chair. Then came twist one. I have placed a restriction on the sale because I do not trust my grandson Ryan's financial judgment, nor do I want my daughter and son-in-law pressured into sacrificing family land to rescue him from debts he refuses to face honestly. My mother gasped. Ryan's face turned red. That's, he started. Mr. Callahan raised a hand and kept reading. I say this not with hatred, but with sorrow. I have helped Ryan before, more than once. I paid off a business loan he hid from his parents. I covered taxes he neglected. I watched him promise change, then blame others when consequences arrived. My father turned slowly toward Ryan. You told us Grandpa never helped you. Ryan looked away. And then came twist two. If Ellie resists the sale of this house, do not call her greedy. She is doing what I asked her, though I did not want to burden her while I was alive. She came when others were busy. She listened when others wanted money. She repaired what others ignored. She never asked me what she would inherit. That is why I trust her. My mother began to cry silently. My throat tightened so painfully I could barely breathe. The lawyer's voice softened as he read the final lines. Ellie, if they make you feel alone, remember this. You are not taking the house from them. You are protecting it from what they have refused to see. Love is not proven by surrendering to pressure. Sometimes love is standing still when everyone else is rushing toward the wrong door. The room was silent. Rain tapped against the window. Ryan looked furious. My father looked shattered. My mother stared at the table as if the wood grain had suddenly become fascinating. For months, they had painted me as the villain. Grandpa's final letter had named the truth, and no one in that room could pretend not to hear it. Ryan was the first to explode. This is insane, he said, standing up. He was old. He was confused. Ellie probably fed him lies. I looked at him. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid. Grandpa wrote that before I knew any of this. Ryan pointed at me. You always wanted to be the favorite. No, I said. I wanted to be family. My father finally spoke, voice low. How much debt, Ryan? Ryan laughed bitterly. Seriously? You're asking me that now? How much? Ryan's silence answered before his words did. A lot. Enough that the sale of Grandpa's house would not have been a fresh start. It would have been a temporary bandage on a wound Ryan had no intention of healing. My mother whispered, We were going to sell his home for your debts? Ryan snapped. Don't act innocent. You wanted the money too. She flinched. He was cruel, but not wrong. That was the hardest part about truth. It did not let anyone hide completely. My father looked at me. Ellie, I shook my head. Don't apologize because the letter made you feel guilty. Apologize only if you understand what you did. His eyes filled with something I had rarely seen in him. Shame. You were grieving, I said. So was I. But you made me your enemy because it was easier than admitting Ryan was using you. My mother sobbed. I thought you were trying to control everything. No. I was trying to keep one promise nobody told me I was keeping. Ryan grabbed his coat. You're all pathetic, he said. Enjoy the rotting house. He stormed out, and the door slammed so hard the picture frames on the wall shook. That was the last time I saw my brother for almost 2 years. Consequences followed quietly. The developer withdrew after receiving notice of the sale restriction. Ryan's debts became his problem alone. My parents had to face relatives they had misled. Some apologized to me. Others avoided me because admitting they were wrong would have required more courage than gossiping had. My parents asked if they could help with the house. At first, I said no, not to punish them, because I needed space where their guilt did not become my responsibility. Months later, I allowed them to visit on Saturdays. The first time my father repaired a porch railing beside me, we worked for an hour without speaking. Then he said, "Your grandfather taught me how to use this saw." I nodded. He taught me too. My father looked at me then. "I hate that I forgot who you were." I swallowed hard. So did I for a while. My mother planted flowers under the kitchen window. She cried while doing it, but I let her cry. Tears are not repayment. They are just water. What matters is what grows afterward. The house stayed. Not untouched, not frozen in the past. I renovated it slowly, carefully. I turned one downstairs room into a small family archive with photos, letters, recipes, and tools labeled in Grandpa's handwriting. I did not become rich from it. I became rooted. And Ryan? He eventually declared bankruptcy after another failed business venture. Without the house money to rescue him, people finally stopped confusing his confidence with competence. That felt satisfying, yes, but not because he suffered. Because for once, the right person was not asked to pay for the wrong person's choices. Sometimes I sit on Grandpa's porch at sunset and listen to the boards creak beneath my chair. The house is still imperfect. The kitchen cabinets still need lifting. The upstairs hallway still complains in the same 3 places. The garden still grows more weeds than tomatoes if I miss a weekend. But it stands, and so do I. For a long time, I thought being loved meant being believed without evidence. Maybe that is too much to ask from imperfect people. But I do know this. Family should never require you to betray yourself to prove your loyalty. My parents and I are healing slowly, carefully, honestly. Ryan is still distant, and maybe that is for the best. As for Grandpa's letter, I keep a copy in the desk by the window, not because I need proof anymore, but because on the days I feel small, I read one line again. Love is standing still when everyone else is rushing toward the wrong door. And I remember that sometimes the person called greedy is the only one protecting what love left behind. If this story made you angry, emotional, or reminded you of a time when your family misunderstood your intentions, I'd really like to hear what you think. Was Ellie right to fight for her grandfather's house, even when everyone called her greedy? Or should she have let the family sell it and walk away? Share your thoughts in the comments, because stories like this are about more than inheritance. They are about memory, loyalty, favoritism, and the painful moment when truth finally speaks louder than family pressure. If you have ever been blamed for protecting something meaningful, your story may help someone else feel less alone. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and come back for more emotional stories about family betrayal, hidden truths, unfair choices, and the moments when life finally turns everything around. Because sometimes, the final word belongs to the person everyone tried to silence.